Hey, everybody, this is Brett Ingram, and this is the optYOUmize podcast, the show that helps entrepreneurs build their dream business and dream life. Today, we're talking with Paul Wilson, hypnotherapist and coach. He helps entrepreneurs achieve rock solid confidence and eliminate procrastination, overwhelm, and perfectionism. I'm super excited about this because I think being an entrepreneur is as much mental as it is physical. And it's really important that we have the right mindset. So, with that, welcome, Paul, and thanks a lot for joining us.
I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Brett. Looking forward to the conversation, sir.
Yeah, I am too. I'm fascinated by what you do. So, I have a lot that I want to dig into, but let's start off a little bit with your background. Can you just give us a sense of what was the start of your career and what led you into hypnotherapy and coaching?
A complete leap of faith into a big black, dark black hole, basically. Um, I'm 64, so in a potted history, I spent the first kind of 10 years of my working life traveling around Europe. I'd hitchhike and then go to a beach resort in the summer and be a beach bum, working bars, cafes, that kind of thing. And then once the summer season had finished, I would just travel around with my thumb out wherever cars would take me. And then generally in the autumn, I'd kind of head towards the mountains, and then I would be a ski bum again, bars, clubs, sweeping up, whatever. In between times, I built it, knocked it down, painted it, scraped it, pulled it, pushed it, built it, all kind, anything to make a bit of money or to pay for a meal, because during those kind of 10 years, I never had any money. So it was literally hand to mouth. I mean, I did a post years ago, and it kind of goes like, I've dined in, five-star restaurants at the invitation of the person that's been driving me, but I've also eaten the leftovers out of garbage cans and slept underneath motorway bridges. I've broken bread with the rich, the poor, and the dying. I've been chauffeured in, beautiful limousines, and I've been given lifts in cars where I had to get out and push, and everything in between. So I did that for around about 10 years, then went into the corporate world, spent about 25 years in the corporate world, and then I don't know where this came from, but in the 25th year, I had an accident and I got knocked off my bicycle on the way to work. And I broke my right arm above and below the elbow. And I'm right-handed, so I was pretty useless. So they signed me off for 6 weeks. And I'm sitting at home feeling really sorry for myself, boo-hoo. And then, should I stay? Should I go? Should I? This was a kind of a back and forward between myself and myself for 6 weeks. I go back to work still undecided. So I'm getting to my office, wading through all the emails and trying to get the door open and getting all the mail out of the way, and I'm doing that. And then just by a fluke, the head of HR, Nick, walks past my front door and goes, "Hey, Paul, how's the arm?" "It's great, thanks." And then to this day, I don't know where it came from. "Have you got a minute?" Anyway, "Yeah, sure, come round to the office." Long story short, about 8 weeks later, on the exact date of my 25th anniversary, I was out. Yeah, I'd quit and gone my own sweet way. Now, here's the irony. I'm really passionate about photography, and I was going to become a professional photographer. And this is one thing. If you're thinking about quitting your job and starting a new career, do your research first, not do what I did. So I quit my job, went and talked to lots of photographers, and the prime question they all asked me was, "Paul, do you love photography? Do you love your camera?" And I went, "Yes, I sleep with my camera every single night." And they said, "Don't become a photographer because you'll hate your camera after about a week." And they kind of explained why, because anybody with a phone now is a photographer, essentially, yeah? And so the market is the floors dropped out of that market, and you have to be highly specialized, be well known, have a great network, and it takes a hell of a long time to actually get recognized as a photographer. And I went, okay, what am I going to do now? So I'm scratching around. When I quit the job, I'd taken on a personal trainer to I was a bit pudgy, I needed to lose some fat. And one day we're working out, and the instructor goes, "Did you know, Paul, that me and my wife were hypnotherapists? We're doing this try before you buy kind of thing this weekend. As you're a client, come along for free." Okay, I'm up for new experiences. So I went along to this weekend and ended up working with this lady. And I live in the UK, so this is relevant. And she's petrified of snakes and anything that wriggles along the floor. Now in the UK, we've got maybe 2 snakes, one of which is slightly venomous, and you've got more chance of being struck by lightning and winning the lottery on the same day as seeing one of these things. So it's a very illogical type of phobia. But anyway, we did the work, and I've got in my phone. Let me show you a picture of a snake. Oh, no, 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 no. And there's tears and, crying. At the end of the day, she goes, "Show me a video." So I find a video of a snake. And, "Yeah, there you go. No problem." And I'm thinking, wow, that's amazing. But I felt, yeah, okay. The next day, she sent me a video because her husband, thinks he's Steven Spielberg. So every time the family goes out, he's got the phone and he's giving it all of this, And she sends this video, and they're walking through some woods. You can hear the kids kind of running around in the background. And the husband goes, "Careful, darling." And he points to this worm wriggling around in front of her on the pathway. He goes, "You have to step around, careful." She goes, "No, no, no, it's okay." And she gets on her hands and knees, and very, very carefully, she scoops this big wriggly thing up and carries it across and lays it gently on a blade of grass. Husband launches a stream of expletives, nearly drops his phone, and I'm going, I've got a superpower. So I went back to the personal trainer, said, "Who trained you?" Went to work with him. "Who trained you?" And I did that as far up the tree as I could go. I bought every course and every PDF and everything I could find, and I became a hypnotherapist. And I love hypnotherapy, but the one kind of minor little downside is that hypnosis generally just treats one tiny aspect of the person, like a fear or a phobia or that kind of thing. And so in my kind of corporate world, I've done a lot of coaching and mentoring off the cuff. I've always had teams, and I always wanted to kind of build my team up. And so I thought, so I could combine the two into something a bit different. And so that's what I do. I still see people for fears and phobias and stop smoking, all that kind of good stuff. But also now I incorporate hypnosis into my coaching, which is where the entrepreneur thing comes in. I hope that was a pretty potted history in about 3.5 minutes.
That is amazing. You have an amazing background, amazing story. And, the experience that you had even young, just being able to travel around like that, I understand. I mean, the guts that it takes to do that, because you don't know where you're headed next. And
But that's the thing, Brett. From my perspective, it didn't take guts. It was just fun, and I was broke. So if I wanted to go from A to B, and I didn't have money for a train ticket, I could walk. But if it's several hundred miles, then it's going to take forever. So I hitchhike. And this is in the day before mobile phones, before credit cards were generally, given away like confetti. So I didn't have a credit card, didn't have a mobile phone. I relied completely on my wits. And that was incredible, that being self-reliant. I mean, okay, you're dependent on other people to give you the lift, to give you the ride, yeah? But to actually go out there and to actually do that, yeah, I mean, it's the experience I've had, the things I've seen, I wouldn't trade for anything in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it broadens your perspective, but like you said too, it really develops that self-reliance and that understanding that, you're a survivor, ways to figure your way out of situations and get what you need. And also just your origin story of your current career is amazing too. I love how, it's sort of an amalgam of circumstances, but also it's the consciousness that you had to be aware of the things that mattered to put it together in a way that it fits. I'm totally fascinated by that. I just think that's awesome. So, what role do you think our mentality and our mental state plays in the whole continuum of success? Because I know that for entrepreneurs, like we're taught all the time that, you got to roll up the sleeves, you got to get to work, do this, do that, have your vision and just get to work. But I know from my own personal experience in 17 years, it's never quite that simple.
I think some entrepreneurs are born, and I'll give you an example. Richard Branson. If you've read Losing My Virginity, which is his kind of the first autobiography that he wrote, he tells you about when he was a kid and he was raising hamsters and guinea pigs and selling them off. So he's always doing little jobs here and there to make money. And so that's an entrepreneur who was born into it, and his parents made him very independent. I mean, they allowed him to cycle all over the place on his own. And we're talking, he's a few years older than me, so we're talking kind of the 60s, yeah? So he'd go from London to Brighton on his bicycle at the age of 12, 13, 14, which these days is probably unheard of. Parents would probably die rather than let their kids do this kind of thing. So he became very independent very, very early on because he had the mentality, that sense of adventure. I mean, look at all of the things he does. Forget the businesses. He's flown in hot air balloons. He's driven really, really fast powerboats. He's done all kinds of crazy stunts because that's the kind of guy he is. So from my perspective, there's a cliche, but it's so important. Mindset is everything. Whether you're an entrepreneur or a mum or a dad or an employee, it's how you see the world, your perception of the world, and how you respond to that makes or breaks you. I mean, I really believe that business is all about mentality. People go, no, you've got to have the right product. Well, where does the product come from? It comes from you having the right attitude to go and do your research and find something that you can get behind and you want to push forward. But yeah, you've got to sort out your accounts. Yeah, but if you don't do that properly, why don't you do it properly? Because you're frightened of numbers. That's a mental thing. So you're so right, Brett. Your mind plays a massive, I would say 90%, maybe even 95% of any form of success, business or otherwise.
Yeah, and I think, belief comes into it too, right? I mean, the whole idea, if you start as an entrepreneur, part of it is that you believe you could be successful. Some people look at that the way I look at your early adulthood adventures as crazy or really, hard to relate to, impressive, no doubt, but something and I think some people look at business that way too. And then other people say, you know what, I'm going to put out my shingle. I'm going to do this. I'm going to run a business. So there is a mentality element of that. That's where it starts. You don't start by just starting the business. You start by thinking about, okay, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. So in terms of hypnotherapy and hypnosis, I just have a question. So there might be some doubters out there, right? I know I've seen a couple of hypnotists in action, comedian guys though, not people that were doing it professionally, but they'd hypnotize people. And then I've talked to some of the people after, and I'm like, well, did you know what you were doing? And you get a whole range of responses. Some people say, well, yeah, I knew what I was doing, but I couldn't, I had no control over myself. So I remember doing the things I did. And then I have other people that have said, oh, I don't even know, like, what was I doing last night during the show? And so for the doubters out there, can you share with us a little bit about hypnosis itself and how and why it works?
Okay, so I just want to clear something up. Stage hypnotists are professional hypnotists because it's the same skill used differently. The stage hypnotists use hypnosis to entertain and amuse people. Hypnotherapists use hypnosis to help people get rid of stuff they don't want, essentially. Yeah. What is it? That is a great question because I'll give you the answer. Scientists and hypnotherapists that have been in the industry forever still can't agree on what it is. From my perspective, have you ever kind of been in your office, Brett, and people watching, listening, and you kind of sat there, you suddenly look up at your clock and it's 2:15. You don't know where the last 15 minutes have gone. They just disappeared. You were doing some work, you look up and it's gone. You were in this state. Another example is you've got in your car, you've driven for 4 hours, you get out of the car, you lock the car, you walk away, you stop and you turn around and you go, how did I get here? What? How? I've just got out of the car, but I don't remember driving. I remember getting in the car and starting the engine and driving off, but I don't remember how I got here because essentially what happened was You let your unconscious mind do the driving for you. You let it take over. So you were daydreaming or listening to the music. Now, yes, that can be quite dangerous, but we're lucky because we have these really incredible reflexes. So if we see something that we need to respond to, the conscious mind can be kicked in again straight away. So we kind of snap out of it and take the wheel and do what we need to do. I mean, here in the UK, emergency response drivers are taught to drive consciously. So part of their exam is they have to speak aloud every single act that they're doing. You know, slowing down, junction ahead, looking right, looking left, 50 miles an hour, applying the brake, and so on. Have you heard of the bullet train, the fastest commuter train in the world in Japan? Their drivers are trained to do exactly the same thing. So, and they have to, I'm going to apply the brake. I'm looking at the brake. I'm applying the brake. Taking my hand off the brake. I'm going to look out the right-hand window, looking out the right-hand window. So what this does, it keeps you focused on the task consciously all of the time. So your mind doesn't have the opportunity to wander. And hypnosis is actually doing the opposite. It's getting the conscious mind to go for a coffee so that you can interact with the unconscious mind, because the unconscious mind is the powerhouse. That's where all the garbage lies, all the good stuff lies, our imagination, our intelligence, our ability to focus. All of that is hidden away in the unconscious mind.
That's amazing. I'll tell you a funny story. So when I was in middle school, I had a middle school social teacher, and he started talking to us one day about this thing he called the alpha state. And he said, there's a way that if you really sort of control your breathing and you're breathing in a certain pattern and you slow everything down, maybe listen to classical music. He was talking about the alignment of conscious and subconscious mind. And he said he was a really big believer in this. And he's got a bunch of these, adolescent kids that are non-believers. And he says, we're going to do a couple of experiments here. So he puts on the music and he has us practice this breathing and he makes everybody do it. And then he says, all right, you see this string up here in the corner of the room. I want everybody to there was a little string hanging from a thread hanging from something on the rafter or whatever. And he said, I want everybody to focus on it and move it. Let's, if we all collectively focus on that, I think we can move the string. And I don't know if he had a fan in the back or what he had, but after a couple of seconds, the string started to move. So here's the funny part. So some people are like, yeah, whatever. He probably had something rigged to make it blow. So a couple of days later, he says, we're going to do another experiment. What we're going to do is half of you, we're going to put you in the alpha state, and I'm going to do a chapter that we haven't gotten to yet. We're going to go through some of the material, and then I'm going to give you a test. We're not going to count the test. The other half was not going to do this. And the half that did the alpha state experiment with him got perfect scores. And it was crazy. The recall that you had for information you didn't even know. And so that was sort of my first experience with anything like that. And I was always intrigued by it. I never quite knew what to make of it, but I was still fascinated by the idea. And I believed wholeheartedly in the concept because you can see elements of your subconscious mind here and there with dreams and things like that. You'll have these various things. So, all right. So that's awesome. I mean, I'm really, really fascinated by that. But so let's talk about goal setting in this context for a minute. I know it's really important to success, especially as an entrepreneur. What's the best way to set and, create goals? Bless you.
Okay. The most important thing, Brett, when you're setting a goal is to have a compelling reason why you want to achieve that goal. Because if there's no compelling reason, where's the discipline coming from? And I didn't use the word motivation because motivation is temporary. Discipline is the real powerhouse. You've got to get up every morning at X o'clock, let's say 7 o'clock, to go and do a 2-hour job before you start your day job. You've got to have a compelling reason to want to do that second job before your main job every single day, come rain or shine. Maybe you want to buy a house. Maybe you want to propose to your partner, and you know, in your mind, you've got to have everything ready, so you need $10,000 to do this thing. You know, maybe you want to buy a car or learn to ride a horse or travel the world. You've got to have a compelling reason in order to achieve that goal. Now, a lot of people say, Paul, that's baloney. No, it's not, because ask yourself, when was the last time you set a goal and you didn't achieve it? And now go back and say, okay, yeah, I didn't do that thing. I didn't finish it. Ask yourself, how come? And I bet you $100 the reason why you didn't achieve that thing, barring illnesses and unfortunate events, was because the reason you set that goal wasn't compelling enough. Because once it's compelling, you'll go through hell and high water. Let me give you an example. When I qualified as an advanced conversational hypnotherapist, it's a 3-day weekend course. And at the end of it, the instructor, because he's in Australia, I'm in the UK, so it's about 4 o'clock in the morning my time, and he's been talking for like 8 hours, so he's exhausted. And he goes, okay, any more questions? You can see he just wants to go to bed. And somebody pipes up, what do we do now? And you see the frustration on his face, and he goes, go and do 150 practice hours, 150 practice sessions. So this kind of rang around my head. I went to bed. I got up the next morning, and I said to myself, you know what? I know he was only joking, but what if we made that a thing? And so I said to myself, you know, if you want to become an authority, if you want to be seen as the go-to person for this modality, do 150 practice sessions. So I cleared my schedule. I opened my Calendly link from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. And in 2.5 months, so about 10 weeks, I did 164 practice sessions, more than 300 hours of practice. Nobody else has done it before and since. Yeah. And now you say, okay, what was the compelling reason? Because, well, I saw this throwaway comment as a challenge, and I love a challenge, a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. And nobody had done it before, and it was something that I could accomplish. Now, it wasn't, go and do 14 hours of surgery, Paul, because I'm not a medically qualified doctor, so I couldn't do that if I tried with the best will in the world. But this, I could do. And so I went off and did it, and I accomplished it. And it did lead me to becoming, I now teach and mentor and coach other hypnotherapists. So the goal has to be, you have to have a compelling reason for doing it. That's the first thing. The second thing is, you've got to set yourself up for success. Now, loads of people go, I'm going to use some affirmations. I'm going to use affirmations because they work wonderful. They will really help me achieve this goal. Not if you don't do them right. I'm going to become a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. I'm going to make $100,000 by Christmas. Now, if you have a hard time saving money and your bank account looks like it's got $5 in it, your unconscious mind is going to go, come on, Paul, you're never going to be a millionaire. You can't even save money. You've never started a business. So who are you joking here, sunshine? Yeah, it's not going to happen. So you can say that affirmation 1 billion times and it won't work because your unconscious mind and your conscious mind are not in alignment. Now, what will work is two things. Is if you take action, but then say to yourself something like, I'm on my way to becoming a millionaire. And your unconscious mind sees that you're reading books about entrepreneurship. You're actually starting to save some money. You're actually starting a few little side hustles here and there. So it sees that you're taking action, and it will get on board with you, and it will help you and start to show you opportunities. But it's just a twofold thing. You've got to take the action, and you've got to use the affirmation appropriately. Yeah, and then the third one. I have a business coach, and every month on the last Wednesday of the month, I run what I call my Jedi Mind Trick Goal Setting Workshop. And what we do is everybody comes with a goal, and I kind of do a reverse process. Because our minds find it easier to look back than it does to look forward. Because what's the thing? The past is history, the future's a mystery, and today's a present or whatever. Yeah, but that's true. The future is a mystery. So what I do is I get people to project forward a month and then look back at having accomplished the goal. And what this does, it helps create a neural pathway to make that goal more believable, more real, and help you kind of foresee any obstacles, any challenges, and anything you need to do to be able to achieve that goal. Because the smart, specific, measurable, and all that kind of stuff, that's good. But if your reason isn't compelling, and if you can't see yourself having accomplished that goal with lots of emotion and feeling, it's not going to happen. It just isn't going to happen. So for me, that's the two main things to success with goal achievement, is making sure you have the compelling reason and then building a future looking backwards to help you foresee challenges and obstacles, and also people who you might need to reach out to get help.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really powerful, and I'm with you on the compelling reason, because I know, just from my own entrepreneurial experience, no matter what you're doing, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be straight and narrow path if it's anything worthwhile. And so one of the things that I've always, when I've had an opportunity to talk to people that were aspiring entrepreneurs or whatever else, I've always told them is, and I tell my kids this too, don't chase money, right? Don't go into something because you think that's the easy money. Because here's the thing, and this is something that occurred to me when I was working for other people as a professional. I was in the staffing industry for a little while, and one day I came into the office, and I was reasonably good at it because I'm personable, I'm smart enough, I'm good enough. I was never great, but I was good enough at it. And so it's something I could have made a career out of. But I remember coming in the office one day, and I worked at a small company, and the owner of the company was in there, and she'd been in there since God knows what time in the morning, telling me as soon as I walked in the door, all excited, talking to me about this woman that she talked to the night before. She was on the phone for 2.5 hours. The word commission, the word profit, any of it never came out of her mouth. She was obsessed with this woman's career path because she knew that this job that she had found for this woman was the right move for this woman, and that she had to convince her to do it 100% for her sake. And I sat there looking at her in awe, thinking to myself, first of all, if I ever needed somebody in staffing, she's the one I'd want to work with. Second of all, I'm not that. And if I'm not that, that's my competition. Now, I work for her company, but I'm saying that's the story that I tell the people about an entrepreneur. Because if you want to go into the gardening industry because you think there's a quick buck to be made there, there's somebody that jumps out of bed every morning on 5 hours of sleep, excited to go to work because they love gardening. They love selling gardening things. If that isn't you, that's who you're competing against. So as soon as you hit those bumps in the road, you're going to give up because your competition is never going to stop. And you got to find that thing for you that is the same. And when you do, you're the one that everybody else has to compete with. And so I 100% believe in the idea that you have to have that passion, you have to have that reason why behind it, the love for what you do for its own sake, not for the thing that's behind it or what you think you're going to get out of it. And I think there's a lot of power in that. So one reason that I've heard people explain for failure, and I've heard this phrase a lot, or lack of success, is because of self-sabotage. Do you believe in that, or what is that concept?
I'm grimacing because I hate that phrase with a passion. Our brains do not sabotage us. Okay, it's a misunderstanding. If you think about it, the word sabotage is the deliberate interference to stop the progress of an enemy. What happens is, we've had an experience 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago, because despite the fact that we think we're such an advanced bunch of people that's really sophisticated, we are still fundamentally very, very simple creatures. Fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. These are our 4 responses to any kind of threat. So you go into the office in the morning and your boss chews you out. Now you can stand there and you can literally fight back by having an argument. You can freeze by standing going, yeah. You can run away, literally, I'm not studying for this, and just leave, yeah? Or you can afford, oh yes, you're so right, boss, I'm such an idiot. Okay, there's our 4 responses, okay? And what happens is our unconscious mind has one function. Our brain has one function. That's to keep us alive so we can procreate the species. That's it. Yeah? Not about making us millionaires or billionaires or trillionaires or having fancy cars. Its job is to keep us alive so we can have more babies and make sure those babies grow so they can have babies. Yeah? That's it. So what it does is a situation or a scenario happens that's a threat, or it's a perceived threat. And so our brain goes to one of those 4 responses. And what it's doing is protecting you. It's not trying to sabotage you. It thinks you're in danger. The classic example is public speaking. I know this is from my own life. Back in the early noughties, as they used to be called, the early 2000s, I was working in health and safety. And my boss came to me one day with this big pile of books and CDs and went, this is behavioural safety. Learn it because you're doing a presentation in 2 weeks in front of your peers and your directors and everybody. I'd never done a presentation before. I didn't know anything about the topic. I was no interested. And I'll be honest, I was lazy. I'd always find the easy way out. So I kind of left it to the last minute. And then, as you do because of cramming for an exam, I made every single mistake any experienced public speaker will tell you. I created a PowerPoint slide presentation from hell. There were 1 million slides. Every slide had War and Peace written on it. There were about 2 photographs. Now, when I get excited, when I get scared, I perspire, okay, really heavily, like I've been in the shower. I was wearing a short sleeve green shirt. We're in this room that's sat for 16 people. There's about 40 people in there. I'm at the front. Okay, I turn this presentation on. I turn my back to the audience because I don't know the material, so I'm reading off the thing, and I can feel the sense of boredom and all the rest of it. So there's sweat pouring off me. My shirt was green, it's now black. I'm shivering, I'm shaking, I'm mumbling, I'm stumbling. Everything's going wrong. It's horrendous. After about 10 minutes, my boss takes pity on me. He says, Paul, I'll take over. I am not ashamed to say that I ran out of that room into the bathroom and I bawled my eyes out. I was so ashamed. I felt about that big. Okay. Now, fast forward 8 years. I hadn't done another presentation. I didn't put my hand up in meetings, so I didn't ask questions. I didn't go for promotions. I didn't do any of that stuff because my brain went back to that event, and that was like being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger. So my brain protected me by saying, keep your head below the parapet, don't raise your hand, don't talk, don't stand out. Now, thankfully, something happened in 2008 or 9, and an outsider said to me, Paul, we need you to come and do this presentation. I went, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I won't be there. He said, I haven't even told you when yet. So again, my brain was going through every single step to stop me doing this presentation. Now, thankfully, this guy was a very senior person and he doesn't take no for an answer. So he went to my boss and said, tell him he's got to do this thing. Okay, Paul, do this or you're fired. At the time, I couldn't afford to be fired. So I thought, okay, right, I'll do it. So I took a deep breath and I went, okay, I've got to do this thing. How do I do it right? So I learned about PowerPoint. I learned about presentations. I knew the material because the event that I had to present, I was involved in it as it started, while it was going on, after it had finished, and I'd done the debrief reports. I had a really detailed knowledge of this thing. I read that presentations is all photographs and very, very little text and not too much, talk to the audience. I learned all the good stuff. So I went and did this event, and something really, really strange happened. I was really nervous and jittery before getting there. They called my name after lunch. It was a dead slot. Everybody's going to carved out, ready to snooze. And they called me up. They mic'd me up. And as I put my foot on the stage, a switch flicked. And it's, oh, these people are here for me. And I went on there and I did I performed. Yeah. Although it was a professional present, I performed. And I got a round of applause at the end of it. And as a consequence, 3 or 4 other people invited me to repeat the same presentation at their events.
Wow.
So you can see how my brain for 8 years had protected me from being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger again after that first event in 2008. And then I had to find a way to circumvent it so they understood that this next one, 8 years later, I wasn't going to be eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. They wanted me there. They asked for me to be there. So that's why I don't like the phrase self-sabotage, because it's wrong. Our brain doesn't say... Now, it might seem like it does, but you have to ask yourself, what's happening? Why don't I want to go and do that presentation? Why don't I want to pick up the phone and talk to that person? Why don't I want to send that email out? Now, a lot of it comes back to the original thing, Brett, about not having a compelling reason to do the thing in the first place. But if you have that compelling reason, you will find a way round. You'll think, okay, this is not sabotage. This is something's going on. What's going on? What's causing this? I do this all the time with clients. Clients say to me, Paul, this is happening. Okay, let's do the work. Let's find what I call the root cause. What initiated this? When was that saber-toothed tiger attack? Because what happens is, it's not, we have millions and millions of memories. Most of them are insignificant. Some are nice, some are happy memories, but the majority of them, they're just floating around, yeah? When we have a saber-toothed tiger event, it adds all the baggage. So you've got this huge, monstrous memory which stops you. Now, the thing is, the unconscious knows the memory, but consciously you don't know. One of the funniest responses I get from people is, "Oh, Paul, it can't be that. You're joking. It can't be that thing." Yeah, it is. If that's what the memories your unconscious come up with, that's it. And quite often, when we're kids, something is mountainous, it's huge, it's universal. But as an adult, it's a tiny little blip that lasted 5 seconds. But that tiny little blip that lasted 5 seconds 20 years ago is responsible for you not wanting to do public speaking or not wanting to go and ask that girl or guy out on a date. Yeah? So you figure out what it is,
Yeah, and so it's probably more like incongruence than it is self-sabotage, because you have some things that are lingering in your subconscious that are forcing you or causing you to react in a way that you don't even necessarily realize why you're doing it, but you're just, and I think that's probably the same thing when logically we know we need to do A, B, and C today to reach the goal that we're setting, and then we do A, we get halfway through B, and we're sort of like, we just totally forget about C. And then we would think later, wait a minute, I blew that deal today. Why would I have done that? I knew that I just needed to do these 3 steps and I would have closed the deal, but I didn't follow through. And it's so congruous with our logical mind, because we knew what the steps were, but for some reason we weren't able to follow through and do it. So what about happiness and unhappiness? Do you think that people, I think we have a predisposition, but do we choose whether we're happy or unhappy, or is that sort of self-consciously driven as well?
Okay, so let me just prefix this. There are times when it's completely appropriate to be unhappy and sad and tearful. Like if somebody passes away and you've got to go to a funeral, oh, hi, I'm really happy to go to this funeral today. That's not really appropriate. But apart from that, we can choose to be happy. Yeah, there is a very famous TED talk about kind of fake it till you make it, but the lady that does this TED talk talks about the fact that most people walk around with their humped shoulders, with their heads down, and they're breathing through their chest and through their nose, through their mouth, and that body posture just makes you feel low. Whereas if you sit up, like a piece of string pulling you up, and you smile. Now, I've trained myself. When I smile, I start to laugh. And instantly, now that I'm up, my shoulders are back, I'm feeling relaxed, but I'm sitting upright, I feel so much better. So in answer to your question, yes, we choose to be sad. We choose to be... now, yes, there are circumstances that will dictate our responses to them. In a lot, like I said, if you're in a car accident, it's a bit stupid to think, oh God, I'm really happy. I've just had a car accident. I've lost my leg. I'm feeling great. No, that's not really appropriate. But in most everyday scenarios, we choose, because there's only two things in life that we really control. The first thing is not the event. We can't control the asteroid hitting the Earth or the ship sinking. We control how we respond to that event happening. So if your girlfriend walks out, you can be happy, oh God, thank God she's gone, she was awful. Or you can be sad, oh God, no, she was the most wonderful person in the world and I feel really sad. Yeah. And the other thing we can control is this, our thoughts. Now people say, Paul, you cannot control your thoughts. I completely disagree. It takes practice and it takes discipline, but you can control what you think about. Yeah, it's very, very simple, but not necessarily easy. So yeah, you can be happy most of the time. And if you choose to be sad, then you understand that you are choosing to be sad. If there's no specific reason why you should be feeling sad.
Interesting. Yeah, no, and I've noticed it too, even in myself. Sometimes I'll have a particular disposition and I don't even really know where it came from. But I do know that if you change your physiology and you change your sort of inner monologue, you can change the way that you feel, and you can change the way that you react to things as well. So I think that's really powerful. All right, so where can people find your products, find your services, connect with you?
Well, I'm all over social media, Brett, but my home base is called happyhead.co.uk. So happyhead, somebody taken happyhead, so I had to stick the A in front. So happyhead.co.uk. That's where you can find out all about me, see the testimonials, read about the kind of stuff that I do, all that kind of interesting information.
Perfect. Thanks for that. And I have one last question to ask because I think it's important and I'd love to know what everyone's going to say. And that is, what's your number one tip for success as a business owner or an entrepreneur?
Okay, process over expectations. What I mean by that, imagine you're working in a factory, okay? Your job is to put something in the bottom right-hand corner of the box that comes along. So the box comes along, you grab your thing, you shove it in, box disappears, new box comes along, ad infinitum. Now, if you're thinking, oh my God, here comes a box, I really want to put my thing in the bottom right-hand side there, I've got to do it properly, you're going to get so overwhelmed. Because if the box doesn't happen, or if somebody's put something in your box, in your little slot by mistake, you're going to get confused and lost and upset. Whereas if you focus on the process, okay, box, drop, box, drop, box, drop. Now, okay, what do you mean, Paul? Okay, you got a client call. If you keep thinking, oh my God, I want to sell, I need to sell, I haven't been paid, I've got to eat, I really need this one to say yes. Guess what? That client is going to hear your desperation. Even if you sound normal and flat and whatever, it comes through. I don't know how it works, whether it's osmosis, whether it's telepathy, whether it's, body language. I don't know how it works, but they will know you are desperate and the sale will not happen. However, if you say, okay, here's another client, I've got to do my process, tell them about how I can help them, all the good stuff, blah, 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 and whatever they say at the end is what they need to say at the end, okay? You will close more sales by following your process and not worrying about the expectation than if you just worried about the expectation every single time. So process over expectation. That will lead you to success, assuming that you have a compelling reason to accomplish that goal.
Nice. That's great advice. Perfect. Thanks. All right. With that, it's just about time to wrap things up. I want to thank you again, Paul, so much for sharing all your insights and great tips with us. Visit ahappyhead.co.uk to reach out to him by email or phone, find out about his products and services. Thanks a lot for tuning in, everybody. And always remember, no matter what you want from your business and your life, don't compromise, optimize.